I've sunk 400 hours into Payday 2, so needless to say, Payday 2 was one of my favorite FPS games of all time. It serves as a great fantasy of bank robbery and heisting, with great gunplay, great characters, great enemy variety, and great skill systems. Pair that with the co-op nature of the game, playing Payday 2 with friends became a fun experience. Now, finding out that I actually got access to the closed beta playtest of Payday 3 this week, I am surprised and very excited to playtest Payday 3. Here are my thoughts on Payday 3. Starting with the good, Payday 3 overall feels a lot better than Payday 2 in terms of basically every part of the gameplay. The movement feels really good and responsive, with all the new movement tags like sliding and vaulting over objects. The gunplay is also great, the rifle feels powerful, and I think there's an armor system to the enemies because the signature pistol requires a lot more shots to kill an armored SWAT unit, but against normal cops, they pretty much require the same amount of shots. I actually like this detail because it makes the rifle mandatory in assaults rather than going full pistols like in Payday 2. The lockpicking is less of a waiting game and now is a rhythm minigame, which is way better than Payday 2's lockpicking. Casing mode also had a huge improvement, where you can do a lot more than what you can do back in Payday 2. You can pickpocket guards' keycard, open and close doors, mark guards, cameras, and civilians too. Basically everything that you can think of being improved from Payday 2 are improved. Oh, and you can carry buddies and civs without the use of body bags anymore, which makes controlling the area for stealth much more convenient. There are many more additions and improvements that I probably can list off, but overall, this makes Payday 3 a really fun heisting FPS. It feels like the first time I played Payday 2 back in the day. But I have to gloss over the positives of Payday 3 because I wanted to talk more about the negatives that I've experienced in Payday 3. First and foremost, the performance of Payday 3 is questionable. I have an RTX 3090 with i7 12th gen processor, 32GB of RAM, and the game regularly hovers around 60 to 80 FPS, and it sometimes drops to around 50 FPS. My PC is able to run Apex Legends at a constant cap 144 FPS. Seeing Payday 3's performances like this seems questionable. I am convinced this is because of the infamous de nouveau DRM. So I wanted to urge Starbreeze to not have de nouveau, but it is understandable for new games to have an anti-piracy measure. So the next point is that the UI needs to be fixed. I know that the UI is not final and not indicative of the final product, but I want to comment on one of the UI that irks me, and it is this part. On screen, there are two button prompts for two different actions. On the hindsight, you thought that this is a bug or something, but it is apparently by design, because one of them is done by tapping while the other is done by holding. I'm gonna say this is a confusing UI choice. My suggestion is to add a hold text above or below the button that needs to be held. Or actually, any kind of indication can work as long as it is not one-to-one the same as each other. Next, some minor things first, like the physics and collision is pretty whack, and that the keybinds are kind of awkward, like the melee has gone to V to make space for tools in E, and throw bags goes to Q to make space for grenades in G. However, these two things just need to get used to, so it is not a very major problem. And lastly, The reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place is that the game is always online. Now, at first glance, my first reaction to this announcement is that, yeah, this is 2023. It is probably fine since a lot of games are always online now, as long as the servers are okay. Don't get me wrong, it kinda sucks that you can't play if you don't have internet access, but I reckon it is fine since most of the time I play games are when I'm online anyways. But the 3rd of August proves me wrong, as the server was down within a substantial amount of time that all of us who got access to the beta are frustrated and concerned about the future of the game. So always online is self-explanatory. It requires you to be online to log in into a server to play the game, regardless of if you wanted to play solo or co-op. The main criticism of this is that always online is very much unnecessary, considering that Payday 3 can be played solo at each of the player's leisure. If the player can't be online, the player can't play the game. The other criticism is that when the same thing happened regarding the server being offline back on the 3rd of August, we began to question if the game is worth buying, especially when the peak of the play count, which leads to the shutdown of the server, is at 4,000 players. Compared to Apex Legends, for example, the peak is 300,000 players, and compared with CSGO, it's 1 million players. This always online is also an overlap with the Nuvo, since always online is also a method of anti-tampering or anti-piracy. If starbreeze really wanted the always online thing to happen, the servers really need to be better than the current state, and the game should be free from the Nuvo. Or if you want the Nuvo to be in, then always online has to go. And I guess that's it for my impression of the Payday 3 closed beta. Overall, I am amazed by the quality of the gameplay of Payday 3, but I still have concerns over the DRM, the performance, and the always online part of the game. I really hope Payday 3 will get the smooth launch it deserves when the problems have been minimalized.